to be with you today. I'm excited because I have my colleague, my friend with me, Amrita, and she is going to talk to us today about public policies in Trinidad around kids' youth education. So, first of all, we hope that you had an incredible new year and that you brought your new year in with joy, laughter, and family. We're really excited about this new segment and this new year and all the great things that we'll be achieving together. If you're watching this, we want you to do us a favor and elevate this message by sharing it out. Go ahead and press the share button, whether you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, repost it. Or if you're watching on YouTube, share the link out to a colleague, to a friend, so we can elevate this incredible message. And then also, we want to hear from you. So comment and tell us what your thoughts are throughout this chat. If you're watching this later on, still feel free to comment. We want to be able to connect with you and hear what you're thinking. So we're excited. And Rita, thank you so much for sharing this platform with me and this space and being with me today.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. And just so people know also that Amrita is a colleague of mine's, we actually had the privilege of meeting through our Harvard University learning community of practice, which is a practice, an interdisciplinary practice with policy professionals around the world. And I think we're represented in every continent right now. And I think we're 10 years strong, going in 11 years in 2024. And so we have policy professionals around the world who love people, love community. And this is how Amrita and I got to connect. So I just wanted to put that plug in there. Shout out to our IPP family.
Excellent. Yes, Shaniqua and I would have met through the learning community of the Harvard IPP implementing public policy program, and we've become good friends. We have worked together across several policy problems, and this is another opportunity where we are collaborating.
Yes, incredible. Well, Amrita, I'm going to start off with your bio and then we'll jump into our first question. So, Amrita is an economic policy advisor and former independent senator of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. She first entered the parliament as an independent senator in 2018 and an economist focused on macroeconomics, development, fiscal policy, data driven decision making throughout her career. Miss Deonarine, I probably messed that last name up, has focused on sustainability, a fiscal policy, and public financial management, including tax administration, public expenditure efficiently, debt sustainability, medium term fiscal frameworks, strengthening public procurement systems, and building national statistical capacity. Previously, she was a consultant at the Inter American Development Bank, where she managed a lending portfolio, designed and implemented development projects, and built the capacity of public entities and project execution. She also co authored the IDB's Group Country Strategy 2016 to 2020 and played a key and crucial role in the annual country programming, identifying thematic areas for IDBs, loan portfolio, and technical assistance. Amrita holds a distinguished MCs in economics from the University of the West Indies as a national scholarship winner. That is incredible. Again, thank you. If there's anything I missed out, Amrita, feel free to jump in and share it with us.
Oh, no, not at all. I actually think that was a bit too long.
I feel like we hear our bios and we're like, who's that? And then we realize, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I did do
yeah,
all that.
yeah. I just
So
had that moment.
yeah, like who did that? It was you. So I want to start off by asking you, politics, I think it takes a very special person to get involved in that work. It takes a soul that loves people. And so I'm wondering what inspired you into politics? What got you started?
Yeah, that's an excellent point we should take off on. And I think it's important to understand that in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, our parliamentary system is a little bit unique in the sense that the role of an independent senator is not one that is elected. It's actually an appointment by the head of state, who is the president. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a president and then we have a prime minister. The prime minister is the elected executive and the head of the cabinet. And then we have a head of state, which is the president. Now, in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, what we have is that the president appoints 9 senators in the Senate. And that appointment is based on his discretion, his or her sole discretion, as opposed to the government senators. Even though they are appointed by the president, they are appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. And there are 6 opposition senators that are appointed by the president, but upon the advice of the opposition leader. And the role of an independent senator is one of impartiality and represents a specific area of expertise according to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. My appointment actually came as a surprise, because when I received my phone call by the 11th president of the country asking whether I would be interested, I was a little bit taken by surprise, because it was actually something that I never thought of. I never entertained the thought of entering into the political realm and in the realm of politics. I actually had to tell her that, I may need a few moments to think about this and call you back. And and at the back of my mind, I was thinking that I was being prank called. Why I said yes was because I received this call when I was just 29 years old. I think I had just turned 30 years old. Wow. And I immediately had imposter syndrome set in. And I was like, what am I going to do in the parliament of the country? I haven't even been reading local news, because I, at that point in time, was one of the younger members of society who had become very disenchanted with the way in which politics has been progressing in the country. Sure. And I really felt very disconnected from how policymakers were going about their job. And I felt that, when I received the call, I had to say, let me think about this. I thought about it. And why I said yes was, regardless of how bad at that point in time I thought things were, I actually felt that if there's any opportunity for me to make some sort of change, or even to serve my country, or even fight or advocate for some sort of change, this is it. And this might be the only opportunity. So I went ahead and I said yes. And I served for 4 years and 11 months.
That is, what an incredible story. And it sounds like you always had this desire to help your country, your community, but perhaps you didn't consider it would be in this way. So what were you doing before you got that call? What was your life like before that? Where were you?
Oh my God. I was working at the Inter-American Development Bank as an operations consultant. So I dealt directly with mostly the implementation of development loans and projects. And some I also worked on the design of development projects as well. And some bit of work was done on the economic side, where I worked on the country strategy. But my role in the IDB was not a role of leadership. It was not a role of, your opinion mattered and your opinion is what counts at every meeting. No, my role was, sit behind the computer, crunch the numbers, give your analysis based on the numbers, offer that opinion to my boss, and we have a discussion. But I was always one of the shy ones, and I never offered up my, and let me not say never, I always reserved my opinions.
Yeah.
And when I received this call and I entered the role in the parliament, all that mattered was my opinion and my analysis, and I had to say it out loud to everyone, and I had to rebut, you know, um,
Yeah.
controversial topics, controversial issues. And it was a steep learning curve for me. It actually took me about maybe 6 months to 1 year to fully adjust into the role. Yeah. As I said, I refer to the imposter syndrome again, and it is something that women, especially young women in
Sure.
who assume leadership positions,
Yeah.
tend to find themselves feeling like, asking themselves, do I belong here? And you
Yeah.
usually go through a process where you have to, build that confidence and trust yourself and build self-esteem, and know that, you are the one that were chosen, and you were
Yeah.
chosen for a reason, and you therefore have more than what it takes to get the job done. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that idea of, first of all, I feel like a lot of women do deal with imposter syndrome, especially women in leadership, tend to feel like they don't have enough, or they don't have what it takes to fulfill that role, when reality they have twice as much as the average person. So the idea of, do I have enough? Can I do this? Why did they call me? Are these people crazy? They're gonna find out I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God, they're gonna pull my cover. And you're so many women in leadership right now might even be feeling that. You know, like they don't qualify, like they shouldn't be in their positions. And when in reality, I believe that we have everything that we need. We have what it takes. But it's really, you talked about like settling into that role. It took you almost a year to be able to be like, okay, my opinion, it not only does it matter, it's necessary for this job. Like I gotta offer it. Um,
Yeah.
what an empowering shift in your life.
Yeah, and the thing is that it didn't come with, there isn't a manual on, or standard operating procedures on how do you be an independent senator, That doesn't happen. You don't get that. You get some support from the Parliament Secretariat, which is honestly very good support. But still, you as the individual, as the sole economist that sat in the Parliament, especially on the independent bench, my views, analysis, and interpretation and commentary on government economic policy was very much look forward to by the population and the citizenry. And yeah, I had to, get up to the task very quickly. I tell you, the first 6 months of this role, I always had a backup plan. I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to run. I'm going. I'm going. I was so scared. But each time, I had the support of not only my husband, who was always on WhatsApp messaging me, you can do this, you can do
Oh,
this, you
that's so
know.
sweet.
And why I'm saying this is because I have never spoken about this while I was in the role, and now that the role is completed, it's done. I feel that me sharing this story and sharing, the fact that I pretty much felt like an imposter is important for a lot of women out there. And I think it's important that women don't underestimate themselves,
Sure.
and there isn't anything in this world that that you're not good enough to do.
I love
Yeah.
that. I mean, like, if you want a job done, you give it to a woman to do, right? As
Yeah.
I feel like we know how to multitask. We bring something that's so unique to our society, to our country. And so I agree. You know, there behind every man out there that's running or leading, there is a woman, whether it's an assistant or a mom or a wife. Um, but I truly believe that. So I think it's liberating also, Amrita, that you can talk about this from in retrospect to say, yeah, I took this role and I wanted to run and I was afraid and I didn't think that I could do it. I think that's so liberating for other women who are taking on new roles or who might perhaps be afraid to run for office or take in a leadership role because they feel like they don't have what it takes. Um,
Yeah.
it's normal. You're normalizing it. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So we're talking about education and young people too, youth education. We probably, those that are listening and watching might maybe a mixture of people from different countries. Perhaps the U.S. may be the predominant audience watching. I'm wondering if you can speak to what are the challenges and youth education right now in Trinidad and Tobago, just sort of to elevate and raise awareness so that we also know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So to put this into context, I think it's important that we understand the education system in Trinidad and Tobago because it's quite different from the U.S. system. The education system, we have free education at all levels, up to tertiary level, where you receive a subsidized tuition for tertiary education based on a means test, which is based on the level of household income that is earned. But at the early childhood, the primary and the secondary education level, um, uh, it is entirely free. So
Wow.
access to education is available to all,
Yeah.
every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is important to mention that to understand the challenges that we face right now, because even though we have access to education, what you find happening is that we have a situation where youth unemployment rates are high in the country. We also have a situation where the performance of at the primary school level has taken a significant hit after the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are at a position where we are trying very hard to navigate around the complexity of education policies in the country to improve the performance of students at the primary level. And also what we have happening is that school dropout rates are increasing. So within the last, between 2020 and 2022, we had almost 2,800 students dropping
Wow.
out of school, both at the primary and secondary level,
Mm.
mostly at the secondary school level. And 2,800 may sound small, but and it is 2% of the enrollment rate in our country.
Wow.
But when you look at it carefully, you do not know exactly why these persons are dropping out of school. And
Mm.
that is a point at which deep concern is, because not only persons are dropping out of school, you also have a situation where at the primary school level, you have the performance of the performance of those performing or getting 30% or less at the primary level education. That's at the secondary entrance assessment exam. It has been increasing. I have the figures here to share with you. It has
Mm.
moved from 0.6% in 2016 to 13.6% in
Wow.
2023. Now, in 2021 and 2022, it increased significantly. It was at almost 18 and 28% respectively. But
Mm.
thankfully, in 2023, what we have seen happening through interventions by the government, what we have seen happening is that that performance below of 30% or below for secondary and for the SEA, the Secondary Entrance Assessment Program exam, it has decreased to 13.6. But while that is a pat on the shoulder, it still is something that is deeply worrying and concerning, because how the SEA system is set up is that even if you perform less than 30% in an exam, you do not fail the exam and fall out of the education system. You are
Right.
zoned into one of the secondary schools, one of the government secondary schools. And what happens to you from that point up to up to Form 5, which is when you write the CSEC examination, you don't know. That is where most of the students get disenchanted and they basically drop out of school, or they go through the entire system and then not necessarily coming out with any passes or any subjects, as we say in Trinidad and Tobago, so that you are able and capable to attain meaningful employment for yourself, to
Yeah.
contribute meaningfully to the labor force. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's also these trends of it decreasing, increasing, and it's almost fluctuating year by year. What do you believe are some of the external factors that may be contributing to this fluctuation in youth education?
Oh, one of the main factors are the socioeconomic circumstances of in that many individuals face, many parents face, both single parents and a normal families with both parents. But poverty has been something that has not been measured on a timely basis in Trinidad and Tobago. So that assessment of the poverty levels, the level of vulnerability in Trinidad, of citizens in Trinidad and Tobago, has been largely outdated. The last time we would have had poverty statistics was all the way back in 2005. That was the last
Wow.
time we would have done a survey of living condition, which is the survey that is done to assess the level of poverty in the country. So a lot of it has to do when you read the personal stories, that are given on the newspaper and you speak to persons, you see that on many occasions, the reason why a child is not in school is because the parents simply cannot afford to send the child to school, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and even though access to education is free, we also have meals and lunches provided freely at the schools. We also, in the recent budget, there is a 1,000 book grant facility that is now going to be given to the poor, the needy, and the vulnerable families. There is also a uniform program to provide the students with parents who cannot afford with the funds to get
Sure.
uniforms for the students. But there seems to be some sort of challenge in the targeting of these vulnerable persons, the outreach to these vulnerable persons, because even though there are multiple programs available, what you find happening is that there are still pockets of vulnerable persons who are experiencing bouts of extreme vulnerability and poverty, who are still not able to send their children to school.
Yeah, and it sounds like there are gaps. So while education might be accessible in terms of it being free, what are the surrounding conditions in a home that's preventing families from sending their kids off to school? Um, is it transportation costs? Is it that the child needs to do duties at home, or needs to watch their younger siblings? Like what's happening that's not allowing parents to send their kids off to school? It sounds like there are more things that are going on. There may be transportation barriers and other barriers preventing them from accessing this accessible free education.
Yeah, it's actually all of those, but we know that it is all of those only because we have the MPs who are liaising with the constituents who know of this. We have the news, the media houses going and telling these stories. Now, if we would have had timely survey of living condition surveys being done and published, because usually they're supposed to be done in every 4 or 5 years, The last one was in 2005. We should have had one in 2010. Then we should have had one in 2015.
Sure.
2014. Actually, one was done in 2014, but the information was not published because of some technical difficulties.
Hmm.
I would have asked that question when I was in the Senate. There were technical difficulties or challenges with the data, and it was not published. And still, to this day, I think it's this year, 2023, the Central Statistical Office would have gathered its resources, received the necessary training and the additional funds necessary to go ahead and commence the survey of living conditions, right? But the point that I'm trying to bring across is that all the factors that are contributing to a person or a family or a single parent from not sending their child to school would have been available to do the proper analysis to inform policy if this survey was done on a timely basis and published on a timely basis.
Yeah. I mean, and I can imagine, especially data drives and decisions, especially policy decisions. So if you don't have the data to support the decisions, you're sort of in a pickle there. So I'm not sure what agency was responsible for collecting this data, administering the survey, collecting it, aggregating it, and reporting it to the parliament to be able to make informed policy decisions. But it sounds like it needs to be redone. It's restarted in some kind of way. Um, yeah, and I know we're coming to a close. There's so much to talk about
Yes,
on this issue, but I do want to also just give you an opportunity in our closing to talk about when you were a senator, in whatever capacity you're permitted to speak about. We'd love to hear about how did you leverage your expertise. You're an expert in macroeconomics. You talked about data, a lot throughout this talk, but how did you leverage your expertise in economics and development to be able to inform legislative decisions? Anything that you can share with us?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I was appointed in my role as an independent senator in my capacity as an economist. But then you have legislation that is coming to you that are across multiple sectors, across multiple subject areas, and I with the flexibility of expertise I would have built over the first, let's say, 10 years of my working career, I was able to leverage those skills and be able to advocate for not only macroeconomic sus- fiscal sustainability, but also debt sustainability, proper public financial management. And I spent a lot of time emphasizing, re-emphasizing the importance of data, because what I found that was happening was that even though the Central Statistical Office, which is the institution responsible for national statistics, even though the Central Statistical Office had its challenges and were being offered a lot of capacity building, and in the time that I was there, and they were not able to push off statistics in a timely manner. You had all the different ministries who, from their daily operations and their daily functioning, they were gathering data, and they had data at their hands, and data that they could have very well used, and data that could have been shared across multiple ministries to inform certain policy positions and policy stances that could have taken both at the micro and at the macro level. And I found that that was not necessarily taking place, and I spent a lot of time advocating for that. I also spent a lot of time with respect to public procurement and the efficiency of state-owned enterprises. I mean, the list is so long, and I know we're almost out of time. So maybe another time I can give you some more details on exactly what I would have worked on while I was in the Senate.
No, and that leads me to my final question. I think that's all incredible, what you're talking about, and even the work that you did around realizing, okay, so this national institute, that's responsible for providing these reports. Maybe they haven't been able to do it, but we do have data. What does exist? It's here, and how do we leverage what we have as a country to ensure that it's dispersed to the right peoples? But that leads me to my last question. When you talked about you didn't have enough time to really dig deep into what you've done in Senate, but what's next for you? What does that next look like?